Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton, your host. And today we continue with our thyroid series. And today we have Neisha Salas-Berry on to join me to talk a little bit about Hashimoto's. Neisha has a personal experience with Hashimoto's and having put it into remission on her special diet that you guys probably already know about, which kind of is just the Neisha diet. You know, it is what works for Neisha. Some people might call it ketovore. It's sort of in that vicinity, but we're going to go into why she thinks it works for her to take this approach for Hashimoto's and just a little bit in general about the experience of having Hashimoto's. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you on the flip side.
Hello, welcome. I'm here with my good friend, Neisha Salas-Berry. Hey, Neisha.
Hey.
So, Neisha, you specialize with your clients a lot in autoimmune issues, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what's your history with, spoiler alert, I know Neisha has a history with autoimmune issues, specifically thyroid. So can you talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease that also has hypo and sometimes hyperthyroid symptoms. I was diagnosed about 5 years ago. I'd been having symptoms for 2 years before I had a real diagnosis. I kept being told you're just getting older. It's probably your hormones. You're just depressed, even though I had no reason to be depressed. Had very serious symptoms of an autoimmune disease. And finally, the thing that got me a diagnosis was I had problems getting pregnant, had infertility. So my fertility specialist diagnosed me with Hashimoto's, and there we started with desiccated thyroid medication and keto. But first I did paleo because I thought I don't want to give up my carbohydrates, obviously. And, there's the autoimmune paleo protocol that is very popular. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I tried. And unfortunately, that seemed to exacerbate my symptoms even more. I gained weight faster. I had more brain fog. My anxiety was through the roof. I had panic attacks to the point where I was like incapacitated in the floor thinking I was dying. So then I switched to keto and my symptoms started getting better within a week. And then I went and finally got pregnant through IVF. And then I went carnivore, did an elimination diet to try to better understand my body and how it reacts to certain foods. Came to the conclusion that I'm sensitive to these, not sensitive to these type of vegetables, and I do best on a meat-based approach. So most of my autoimmune issues are completely gone, or basically they're just there sometimes. And then all my lab markers are within normal limits. My Hashimoto's is in remission. And so that's what I promote is an elimination diet to my clients who have autoimmune diseases, but basically anybody needs to do that, I think, to better understand your body and how it reacts to certain foods. So that's my story.
Got it. Good. So you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition, and you managed to put it in remission with a keto or very, very low carb diet.
Yes.
/carnivore.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got it. How is Hashimoto's thyroiditis different than, say, normal non-autoimmune condition related hypothyroidism? Do you know?
Commonly, the main difference is that you have fluctuating. Like you can have hypo symptoms or you can have hyperthyroid symptoms. Mm-hmm. It just kind of can fluctuate like that. It's kind of hard to pin down if you're only having your TSH tested, which is the test that most doctors seem to run. So with an autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's, you need to have T3, free T4, TPO antibodies, TG antibodies, and that's going to give you the full picture of how your body is reacting. So Hashimoto's basically is your gut health goes to crap.
Okay.
And your thyroid starts to make antibodies from all this inflammation. Those antibodies start attacking your thyroid and starts to kill your thyroid and make it stop functioning properly. And so you can take medications that can help with this process. However, if you don't heal your gut, this is just something that's going to continue to happen. Slowly but surely, these antibodies will kill your thyroid. So the point I try to make with people that I work with this type of issue is that we got to get to the root problem. The root problem is gut health. And to best heal the gut, you got to take out the inflammatory things. And those most commonly are carbohydrate-based foods.
Right. Especially probably highly processed. Grain.
Gluten gets a really bad rap, and gluten is, not good. I'm not saying it's great. It's not, but it's not the only thing that matters. There's all kinds of anti-nutrients that can cause your gut to become unhealthy. Gluten's just one on a long list.
Got it. What were your specific triggers and what foods have you found are fine?
So for me, I find that some of the foods that are commonly a no-no on Hashimoto's list, like onions and tomatoes, things of that nature, peppers, the nightshades, I tend to do just fine on. And the cruciferous vegetables that are supposed to be totally fine, and I don't really get along. So I can't really eat Brussels sprouts, even though I love Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, rice, those type of things. If I eat them, I can eat them every now and then, but if I eat them on a regular basis, they cause a lot of gut inflammation, gas, bloating, increased pain, increased brain fog. Of course, sugar is absolutely going to trigger me and cause brain fog. My mood immediately changes when I have anything that is considered a high carbohydrate food, and it's just immediate biofeedback that I get from my gut.
Okay, got it. So your first symptom is gut upset.
Absolutely.
Got it. So it sounds like, I've heard it before that often people with hypothyroidism are diagnosed wrongly with depression, as I was, right? But what I hear is that people with Hashimoto's are often wrongly diagnosed with bipolar disorder because there's that up and down cycle.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the panic attacks, it can be manic. You can be manic when really it's just like, your hormones are out of whack.
Body's attacking itself.
Yeah, your body is literally attacking itself.
Got it. So it sounds like with unspecified hypothyroidism, there can be a wide variety of causes, but we might not know exactly what started it. But when you've got something like Hashimoto's, we know it's an autoimmune condition. And every autoimmune condition, in your opinion, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you saying that you think all autoimmune conditions have sort of a root, at least exacerbator?
Yes, I do. From just seeing and working with people with more than just Hashimoto's, like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, all of these are autoimmune issues that seem to get much better when even healthy carbs are taken out and they go more meat-based, whole food, meaning just like eggs, simple one ingredient type foods, they do much better.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Because I've actually heard people even say that Hashimoto's shouldn't even be considered a normal thyroid problem. It just so happens it's attacking your thyroid.
Yeah. And I think that is a fair, assessment because it just happens. It's antibodies that tend to attack the thyroid. Now, there is some evidence that show that it doesn't just attack the thyroid, that it also can attack the brain as well, which is what attributes to so many women with Hashimoto's having so many mood issues that accompany this disease and the signs and symptoms. So the anxiety, the depression, the brain fog, the memory loss. Even there were times when I thought, am I getting Alzheimer's? It was that bad. It was like, I don't even remember that happening. Like Ken would tell me, don't you remember we had this conversation? I'd be like, no, I don't remember that at all. Like it's very serious. So, it does attack the thyroid mostly. There is some science to back up that these antibodies tend to just go throughout and attack other things as well.
Got it. So it sounds like if you can find the root cause, address the root cause, or at least call it a root exacerbator, right? Something that makes it worse, at least. You, I know, were able to completely come off thyroid supplementation at one point. Is that something you see a fair amount?
Yes, although I don't make that a priority on the list of like success goals for any of my clients, because it's not really the marker that we're going for. We're going for feeling better, getting our life back, our signs and symptoms being gone, if not all, completely gone, very, very well improved, that type of thing. Now, if your thyroid is healing, its function is going to get better. So then you're also going to be able to usually come either down on your meds or off of your meds, depending on how long you've been sick, how bad your symptoms were to begin with, how long it was undiagnosed. There's tons of factors that come into that. But yeah, absolutely decrease medication. And sometimes, you can even come off of it.
Yeah, it sounds like, one of the things that's happening if we don't address the autoimmune part and we just medicate, which I think medication is like the best thing in the world, because feeling like you not having enough thyroid is the worst thing. But
right. Yeah.
If you don't simultaneously address the autoimmune condition in the background, your thyroid is still under attack, right?
Right. The damage is continuingly, it's going to continue to be done if you only medicate instead of trying to be proactive and maybe even reverse, because you can reverse the damage. You can heal your thyroid, maybe not completely. Like I said, it just depends on how severe the damage was. But what got me to where I am is saying, what's the worst that can happen? If I do nothing, it's going to die.
Right. Because I've heard that. I heard actually there's a doctor, like an obesity specialist, who has Hashimoto's, and he was like, yeah, my thyroid's pretty much dead at this point. And I was like, because, it's like, if you don't address it, it'll keep attacking it.
You're basically just putting a Band-Aid that's very, very weak on your thyroid if you only medicate and don't try to heal your gut and get down to that root cause. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that people have talked about recently is that for proper thyroid function, it's not just recently, it's been talked about. It's talked about in the paleo community. It's talked about, right, that if you don't eat enough carbs, whatever enough are, you can't convert T4 to T3. And therefore, any low carb or very low carb diet or keto or carnivore puts your thyroid in jeopardy.
Right. It's almost like they don't want us to do this way of eating. Like there's just this whole community that wants to attack low carb and thyroid. It's like, but you need it. And I don't see that. I see people saying that, but then I see real people, as long as they are not under eating, they're not calorie restricting, they are not forcing themselves to fast inappropriately, they're not hyper active in their cardio and working out excessively, doing all these things that actually exacerbate these symptoms and things. If they are doing a proper human diet, eating plenty of protein, attaching fat to that protein, eating enough calories, getting sleep, moving but not being crazy about it, not doing the chronic cardio, like those seem to be the things that cause the most problems, not the replacing of carbohydrates with healthy fat and meat. And I think it's totally fine if you want to eat vegetables. Those are also carbohydrates.
Right.
I have yet to see really good evidence that my conversion is great. My conversion is great. Many of my clients' conversions are great. Their antibodies are lowered. They're sleeping again. They have their brain function back again. Their labs are good. And they've been doing this for many years, a few years, like it's all over the place. I just feel like it's getting a bad name for no good reason.
Right. I think a lot. This is just the thought occurred to me. It's like, I have this with my clients who can't lose weight, right? Who are say they can't lose weight or struggling to lose weight. It's like diet. And I'm like, well, what else is going on?
Right.
How are you sleeping? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? Like across the board. And it's the same thing, just a flip story that people were like, well, your thyroid needs this. And I'm like, well, how are you sleeping? How are you? Because there's a lot more to health than just diet. If diet isn't right, health isn't right, but it's not just diet. It's also, I think the point you made about eating enough, like what we'll often see, and you can tell me if you see this in clients of yours as well, is they're like, I wasn't losing weight. It seemed like my metabolism was really slow. So I just kept eating less and I started fasting more. When I stalled, I started fasting. And then it's like push, push, push. I started exercising more. I started push, push, push. And then like eventually they're like, I needed more carbs. And you're like,
but yeah. That's what I see a lot, is that the answer they think is more hard, like adding more difficult things, like,
right.
Well, I'm not doing
it enough.
I'm not just trying hard enough. But most often than not, they decided they needed to fast and they didn't need to fast. Not everybody needs to fast, and it's okay. And they're eating 900 calories a day and not eating any fat because they wanted to lose weight, because that was their main focus. And especially for thyroid and Hashimoto's, autoimmune, weight is very often the thing women really want to see come off, because it was like, I didn't do anything wrong and this weight just happened and I want it to be gone. And I get that. However, in chasing that weight loss, they do all these things that actually keep them from the weight loss. So they start restricting the calories and they fast and they exercise too much, when it really comes down to, you need to just take away the inflammatory things. Focus on rest, decreasing your stress when you can. I practice stoicism. I talk about that a lot in my groups, just letting things go. If you can't control it, let it go. Women, for some reason, we have a real big problem with doing that. We want to fix everything and we just can't fix everything. It's more often, the answer is much simpler than what we try to make it out to be.
Yeah. I know for my situation so I have hypothyroidism that doesn't appear to be Hashimoto's, although, I had a doctor once say, not everyone, like by the time I got my antibodies tested, I was already had eliminated a lot of foods. And so, they were like, you might not, we don't know. But anyway, I assume it's not, but it could be. But what else do we want to make sure we touch on here?
Consistency, maybe how a lot of people try maybe to go too far, and they try to be perfect instead of consistent, and end up like having perfect days and also really, really bad days, because I see that a lot. Like they feel like they have to go this extreme route and then they end up having really good days and then cheating 3 days. And then like, this doesn't work for me,
So one of the things that I see also, speaking about like extreme restriction, is that people will do multiple restrictive things at once, right? We talked about the problem of adding more exercise, being more restrictive about your food, sleeping less, like restrict. And one of the things that I think is really hard is there's only so much a body can take, and our brain can take too. So I often think restricting the types of foods you eat and also restricting the quantity of foods you eat simultaneously can be really challenging. What do you see?
Yeah, I see many, many women want to get well really fast. And so they want to go fast. They're like Ricky Bobby, and they try to go too hard, too fast. And I think one of the reasons I saw so much success the way that I did is I didn't just try to change everything overnight. Mm-hmm. I made small changes over months and months until I got to the point where I could give up all the things that I thought I needed to give up without it being this huge deal. And I always recommend that too, because if you go from 0 to 60 with Hashimoto's, and really even if you're just a normal person, going from one extreme to another is uncomfortable. It's hard to stay consistent. You fall off the wagon and then you get back on, and you fall off and you get back on. And we're going for consistency here. So if what you can give up is, most of the bread that you eat, start there. If you're like, I don't really need the bun with my cheeseburger, do that. Make small changes over, it's a process. It's not, none of us got here overnight. Nobody. I don't care what anybody says. I went straight from standard American diet to carnivore. No, you didn't. not without some days in between where you fell off the wagon. So give yourself grace and give yourself time, because I think if you just start lowering the carbohydrates, Dr. Berry likes to refer to this slow progression as turning the carbohydrate knob down. He recommends, if you are someone who is eating, like, document how many carbs you're eating on an average day without changing anything. And then start there and maybe cut those carbs in half. And then cut those carbs in half and cut those carbs in half until you get to where your 20 total grams or below, or 50 total grams or below. And that's where you're going to start to see changes. Just cutting those carbs in half is going to change your life.
Yeah. And I think the other thing with Hashimoto's or any autoimmune related thyroid condition, or really honestly any thyroid condition, as far as I can tell, it's very stress sensitive.
Yes.
It's like we are like hair triggers. We're ready to go off at any moment. And our body doesn't currently, while we're experiencing these imbalances, doesn't do well with a lot of stress, which means we actually probably have to sleep more. We probably have to eat better. We probably have to do things like journal or meditate or whatever your flavor of stress reduction is. And so if you find changing your diet super stressful, you're not helping yourself by speeding it up, because you're just cranking up the stress.
And chances are you're gonna, I talk about pulling the pendulum too far back. When you do that, something's gonna break and you're just gonna swing back in the other direction, set yourself back. And then you're gonna be stressed out about that and beat yourself up, and there's all this guilt. So it's like, just go slow. It's okay to go slow.
Right. I also find, people be like, oh no, I cannot include XYZ. I can't have a quarter cup of berries because that is not carnivore. And then something goes on that, like, a week later, they're having like a piece of cake. And I'm like,
could have had the berries.
Pendulum a little bit far.
Right. Exactly. So that's why I liked ketovore so much when I was transitioning and doing all my elimination diet stuff, because it still allowed me flexibility. And then the days that I was like, oh, just meat, I'm good with that today, I could do it and not feel so restricted or bored. And, we can't all be Ken Berry and happy to eat beef every single day for the rest of our life. Some of us need a little bit of flavor change up in there, and having, that flexibility to be like, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of vegetable today with my steak. Made it so much easier to stay consistent and not fall completely off the wagon and go, to Sonic and get the bad stuff.
I've never been to Sonic.
Are you serious?
They don't really have them here.
That's what I've heard. It's like a Southern thing.
Yeah. Anyway, they now apparently do somewhere in California, because I see the ads now, but I'm like, I had also never been to a Chick-fil-A as well.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A. Nothing good comes from going to Chick-fil-A.
Anyway, but I think what I hope people can get out of this conversation is that if you're just getting your TSH tested, or even just your T4, T3, you do want to know if you have Hashimoto's, because instead of just medicating, you have to possibly medicate, but also look for the root cause. I think that's super important, because if you do want to maintain as much thyroid function as you can. So for better thyroid health, other than some natural thyroid supplementation that you might do just to kind of fill in the gap, and then keeping that inflammation low, is there anything else, and the stress low, is there anything else that you think is a good idea for your thyroid health?
Yeah, I supplement iodine, which also is a commonly demonized thing in the Hashimoto's world. A lot of people really freak out when they hear me say, oh yeah, I take an iodine supplement pretty much every day, because there is a lot of misinformation about iodine, and it stems from taking a ton of iodine. And yeah, I don't think anyone should take
hyperdosing.
Yeah, right. I don't think anybody should do that with Hashimoto's. Like, it's unnecessary. Don't do that. What I do is I take 2 single little raindrops of 2% Lugol's iodine in my coffee pretty much every day. That helped me, especially in the beginning. I had a lot of neuropathy and pain. And when I was supplementing iodine, it was better. if I missed a few days, it came right back. So iodine for sure is something that I do daily, and I would recommend to other people to give it a try and do their research on it. Dr. Berry recommends it. Selenium is very common for people to take. I think that that's great, but selenium can be found in food if you're eating an appropriate.
There's a lot if you're a carnivore, you're getting a fair amount of selenium in your meat.
Exactly, and eggs. So that and B supplements, which again, if you're eating a meat-based approach, you're getting a lot of B vitamins as well, B12, B6, like all those things that are recommended for supplements, you tend to get when you're eating meat.
Right. If you live near the coast, I bet you wouldn't even need your iodine because you love some seafood.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, I'm landlocked in Tennessee and I can only get oysters when I go to Nashville, and then they cost me an arm and a leg. So
yeah, it's interesting the way the various supplements work together and how, wow, I could just eat in a way that meets my needs. You know, one of the things that I think is super important is people are always like, oh, Brazil nuts for selenium, because they do have a lot of selenium. But if you eat at least 8-9 ounces of meat a day, which I mean, every carnivore is doing, hopefully, you're going to meet your basic needs for selenium, and also L-tyrosine, which is involved as well. And
I think that you absorb it better from meat. And that, I mean, that's just a theory. I don't think anybody's proven that, but it seems to me that selenium that is from a protein source would be more bioavailable than one that's locked up in fiber.
Right. Well, we know that fiber restricts absorption. It's well known to do that. And I mean, some people do great on a high fiber diet. I'm not like completely anti-fiber, but
yeah, me either. I mean, I still eat some vegetables sometimes,
but
I don't think that I have to though.
Right.
But I like it.
If you want to, for entertainment. It's very interesting how all of these nutrients kind of work together. And I had a similar issue I went carnivore for about 6 months, and for the life of me could not absorb any nutrients before I did that. Like I was chronically low on iron, chronically low on B12, even eating a ton of meat. And then 6 months of carnivore, and all of a sudden all my blood tests turned around so that I started actually absorbing iron and B12.
Like your bacteria needed to be reset.
Right. So it's very interesting the way the body works.
It is. Another thing that gets talked about a lot is probiotics and the need for probiotics. I don't take any probiotics. I don't think that it's necessary. I think that that's something that's necessary when you don't have a healthy gut. But if you're going through the process of eliminating foods and eating meat and healing your gut, then your gut microbiome should be good to go, and you shouldn't have to spend an extra amount of money on a supplement that is probably not going to do you any good.
Right. Well, they talk about, like taking antioxidants being super important, but it turns out that if you stop doing things that distract your glutathione from being your body's appropriate antioxidant, it works real good.
Crazy. Just get out of your body's way.
Right. What else do you think people don't know about Hashis or Hashimoto's that you wish that they did know?
That it is not a, one and done. Like when I first got this diagnosis, it was less common to be talked about. There wasn't really that much information. And it was like, well, you have Hashimoto's, your thyroid is going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. And here's a pill. Thank God there's more information now and good sources of information. And just that it's an autoimmune disease. It is not this lifetime of suffering. You can do things to improve your symptoms. You can do things to heal your thyroid, get your brain function back. Like there is hope. And I say that, it sounds super cheesy, but the amount of women who have come to me and been like, I saw your video about your thyroid journey, and I cried because I thought that this was just how I was going to have to live for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And to see that there is hope that I can reverse this and heal my body and get my life back, it's a big deal, because my doctor didn't tell me any of this. He just gave me a pill and said, well, here, you've got a diagnosis. You have an autoimmune disease. I'm sorry. And so that's the main thing. I just want to get the word out that you don't have to do it exactly how I did it. I don't care, do something, do some research, do some self-experimentation. I do encourage people, please do an elimination diet. if you don't take anything else from this, please take into consideration an elimination diet using the carnivore diet. It sounds extreme, but it's really not. And the amount of information that you get from doing an N=1 experiment and better understanding your body, how it reacts to certain foods, what you can and cannot have, what you can have sometimes, but not all the time. It's good information to know, because otherwise you're just taking advice from someone who doesn't even know who you are. You know who you are, you know how your body reacts, or you can find out if you don't.
Right. And yeah, I think a lot of people get really scared about the idea of going carnivore because they're like, I don't want to live that way. And instead, I think looking at it as an elimination diet, you're just getting a baseline and then you're experimenting to see what works for you, is a much saner way to look at it, I think.
Yeah. And it's a lot of people really want to get those tests done that show you where your food sensitivities are. And it's a waste of money. It's very expensive, and you're going to get better information, and it's going to be cheaper by doing carnivore elimination diet. You do not have to do it forever. It's okay. You don't have to dedicate your life to it. But I'm telling you, a lot of people do it and they're like, wow, I feel so good. I think I'm going to continue doing this. And that's okay too. You can do that. A good friend of ours, grass-fed girl, Caitlin Weeks, she's carnivore.
Right. And she has Hashimoto's as well, right?
She does. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And she just had a baby and was breastfeeding.
Yeah. Doing great.
Miracle.
Super healthy. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the elimination diet thing is so key. And it is true. A lot of people waste a lot of money on these companies getting food sensitivity testing. And I saw an interview with a food sensitivity specialist, or rather an allergist. He was an allergist. And he was talking about these food sensitivity tests. And he's like, they'll tell you you're sensitive to everything you're eating on the regular. That's how they work, but it doesn't mean you have a problem with them. It's just how the test works. So you're going to get the results of that test and be devastated because all of your favorite foods are now on the sensitivity list.
Yeah, it told me I was sensitive to onions and eggs.
Right.
Which I eat a lot of, and beef, but I could eat as much rice as I wanted to.
Right. Yeah. So the allergist at a children's hospital was like, don't even bother, do an elimination diet.
Yes. Yeah. It's cheaper. And it's better information. It's the only source of information that you should be investing your money and your time in, is going carnivore for 6 to 8 weeks and reintroducing foods one at a time. And if you want to learn more about that, shameless plug here, you can come to my group. I have a health coaching group, and we talk about elimination diet all the time in there. I just did a whole month-long program that you can watch the replay if you're interested in. I have a free community and a paid for if you want to come join me for live Q&As weekly. I'm sure Kim can put the link in the description.
I will put the links in for you. No problem at all. Yeah, I think elimination diets are super essential. And maybe you find out through your elimination diet that you can handle a ton of carbs, like, fruits and vegetables. And maybe you find out that you're better off not. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you can give people hope that, maybe they can turn some of these more extreme issues with Hashimoto's around.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.